Good morning, everybody. It is 7:33. This is a very early version of this. I have just woken up. My hair is still a mess. So it looks pretty good for how much of a mess it should be. I've got all of my poetry books back. Obviously, we're going with Imperfect, as we've done every single day. Every single Friday, I should say. But I also found Poetry Speaks, and I also have the 100 best poems of all time. All these collections are purchasable on Amazon. You can look those up later if you want. I just lost my place. There we go. We're starting off with Imperfect today, on this Friday, June 12th, with a poem by Edgar Allan Guest. This is called The Junk Box. My father often used to say, "My boy, don't throw a thing away. You'll find a use for it someday." So in the box he stored up things, bent nails, old washers, pipes and rings, and bolts and nuts and rusty springs. Despite each blemish and each flaw, some use for everything he saw. With things material, this was law. And often when he'd work to do, he searched the junk box through and through, and found old stuff as good as new. And I have often thought since then, the Father did the same with men. He knew he'd need their help again. It seemed to me he understood that men, as well as iron and wood, may broken be and still be good. Despite the vices he'd display, he never threw a man away, but kept him for another day. A human junk box is the earth, and into it we're tossed at birth, till the day will be of worth. Though bent and twisted, weak of will, all full of flaws and lacking skill, some service each can render still. The Junk Box by Edgar Allan Guest. Next poem is by Nits and Waterman. It's called "To Know All Is to Forgive All." Excuse me. Just need some tea. Princess and the Frog. Watch it. If I knew you, and you knew me, if both of us could clearly see, and with an inner sight divine, the meaning of your heart and mine, I'm sure that we would differ less, and clasp our hands in friendliness. Our thoughts would pleasantly agree, if I knew you and you knew me. If I knew you and you knew me, as each one knows his own self, we could look at each other in the face and see therein a truer grace. Life has so many hidden woes, so many thorns for every rose. The why of things our hearts would see, if I knew you and you knew me. It's all for Imperfect today. I felt like starting off with knocking over a tape dispenser. I felt like starting off with poems that kind of imbibe that goodwill, understanding towards the people that we want, need, and love in our lives. And now on a completely different note, this is The Gladiator. It was recommended with our 7th grade poems. And it is by Kenneth's wrong. That's not his name. Kevin Prufer. Prufer? Prufer. Sometimes in life you can't pronounce people's names. And that's okay. The Gladiator. When I died. When my blood feathered away and I stared blankly and sideways into the grass, and Mr. Delaney keeps hitting his computer into the picture frame behind his computer. Start again. When I died, when my blood feathered away and I stared blankly and sideways into the grass, when the grass ceased against my cheek, Can't read this poem. I could not help but remember the gladiator who, in falling, never groans, who, ordered to accept it, does not contract his neck for the final blow. And then the hillside grew quiet. The bombers passed, withering the trees and the city with flame. The empire fell. My empire, like a blood drop on the grass. It is of little consequence to the observer. If the gladiator falls forward into the dirt, he is of a mind merely to do as he is told. He will not see the emperor's thumbs. His city fell to its knees and burned, rolled on its side, but he won't think of it. Those who once cheered for him are cheering still. The airplanes flew over the hill, and I, crouched in the grass, was terrified, but did not look up, did not complain, when the last bomb startled me away. I think it's nice that it ends with startled. Usually when we use the word start or things like startle, to be surprised, to wake up, to be pulled away from a dream of the falling of an empire. I think that was that. I like that. So, just make sure I keep the page. Here Yet Be Dragons by Lucille Clifton. So many languages have fallen off the edge of the world into the dragon's mouth. Some, where there be monsters whose teeth are sharp and sparkle with lost people, lost poems. Who among us can imagine ourselves unimagined? Who among us can speak with a fragile tongue and remain proud? And to finish today, the beautiful poem, the beautiful poet named Pablo Neruda. His work is not stuff I get to read out to you often. It's ebbs and flows. But at least this poem I can safely read to you. This is poetry. That's the title. The title's poetry. And it was at that age, poetry arrived, in search of me. I don't know. I don't know where it came from winter or a river. I don't know how or when. No, they were not voices. They were not words, nor silence. But from a street I was summoned from the branches of night. Abruptly from the others, among violent fires, or returning alone. There I was without a face, and it touched me. I did not know what to say. My mouth had no way with names. My eyes were blind, and something started in my soul, fever or forgotten wings, and I made my own way, deciphering that fire, and I wrote the first faint line, faint, without substance, pure nonsense, pure wisdom of someone who knows nothing. And suddenly I saw the heavens unfastened and open, planets, palpitating plantations, shadows perforated, riddled with arrows, fire and flowers, the winding night, the universe. And I, infinitesimal being, drunk with the great starry void, lightness, image of mystery, felt myself a pure part of the abyss. I wheeled with the stars. My heart broke loose on the wind. I hope that this diatribe of poetry can bring you, if anything, peace and serenity to a difficult time in our lives. It is June 12th. There is only one more Friday in the school year. I will try my very best to continue these throughout every Friday of the summer, and maybe into the Fridays of next year. We will see. But for now, hope to see you. I need more tea. Bye, guys.